Ralph Lauren was the brand that accidentally broke its own dream. Years of discounts, overexpansion, outlet racks, and department store clutter slowly stripped away everything that once made the label feel aspirational. What used to symbolize old money elegance became something you could find piled on clearance tables. The name that once defined American luxury suddenly felt diluted, everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And yet, in 2025, Ralph Lauren is back on a $7+ billion high. With Gen Z obsessed with old money prep, Taylor Swift wearing the brand in engagement photos, and a CEO who ripped the company out of its discount spiral and rebuilt it piece by piece. Because for all its problems, the heart of Ralph Lauren has always been the man himself.
It's myself. In other words, I don't design. Designers somehow do clothes. I do life. I do living.
A designer who built an entire world from instinct, storytelling, and an almost obsessive sense of detail. So how does a brand lose itself this completely and still manage one of fashion's most surprising comebacks? It all started with a Bronx kid whose imagination was bigger than anything around him. He wasn't sketching gowns or studying couture. He was watching old Hollywood films, falling in love with the way men looked when they walked into a room with purpose. He sold neckties out of a drawer in the Empire State Building, insisting on doing them his way. Wider, richer, more dramatic. When Bloomingdale's told him to change them, he simply refused. That stubbornness, that belief in a world he hadn't lived in yet, became the foundation of an entire universe. Polo wasn't just a clothing line. It was a world people stepped into. The blazers, the fragrance bottles, the home collections, the restaurants, the imagery of converted barns and country estates. Ralph wasn't selling shirts. He was selling the dream of a better life. And for decades, people bought into it completely. That's why what happened next hurt the brand so deeply. Success created pressure, and pressure created shortcuts. Too many sub-brands, too many licenses, too many places you could walk in and see the logo stacked to the ceiling. Purple label meant prestige. But by the time Ralph Lauren and Chaps hit endless department store racks, the story started to fracture. Luxury thrives on distance, and Ralph Lauren was suddenly everywhere at once. Then came the real breaking point, the outlet boom. What started as a way to clear excess stock became a full-on business model. The more Ralph Lauren expanded into discount distribution, TJ Maxx, JCPenney, Macy's, the faster the brand's exclusivity evaporated. What used to symbolize old money elegance now sat folded on clearance tables. The American dream Ralph had crafted so carefully became mass market uniform. By 2015, the cracks were impossible to ignore. Sales were slipping, margins were falling, inventory was everywhere except where luxury consumers wanted to find it. Behind the scenes, layoffs hit nearly 1,200 employees. The Polo store on Fifth Avenue, once the brand's own cathedral, shut its doors. And Ralph himself stepped down as CEO, a symbolic moment that showed just how lost the company had become. It wasn't a collapse. It was a slow unraveling, the kind luxury brands rarely survive. And just when the brand needed clarity, it got a strategy that pushed it even further off course. In 2015, Ralph Lauren brought in Stefan Larsson, the man who helped Old Navy thrive by leaning on speed, efficiency, and aggressive price competitiveness. On paper, he was the turnaround expert. In practice, he stepped into a luxury universe that couldn't survive fast fashion logic. Larsson launched The Way Forward, a restructuring plan built around cutting costs, streamlining operations, and speeding up product cycles. It made sense in the world he came from, but luxury doesn't run on efficiency. It runs on storytelling, scarcity, and emotional connection. And the more the brand tried to operate like Old Navy, the more it slid into its identity crisis. Behind the scenes, the disconnect grew sharper. Larsson wanted numbers, less overhead, faster delivery, and a simplified assortment. Ralph wanted legacy, heritage, craftsmanship, and a world that couldn't be measured on a spreadsheet. The tension was inevitable. In less than 20 months, Larson was gone, a rare public fracture at the top of a fashion empire. But the damage was already visible. Consumers didn't know what Ralph Lauren was anymore. Department stores still overflowed with discounted product. Multiple sub-brands blurred the identity beyond recognition. The question meeting rooms kept circling back to was the one no one wanted to say out loud. Was Ralph Lauren still a luxury house, or had it quietly become a mall brand? For a company built on the idea of a dream, losing the answer to that question was the real crisis. And just when the story could have ended there, a slow fade into irrelevance, someone completely unexpected walked in and changed everything. The turnaround didn't come from a fashion insider or from someone with a romantic connection to American prep. It came from Patrice Louvet, a French-born executive who spent his entire career at Procter & Gamble managing razor blades, fragrances, skincare brands, and global supply chains. On paper, he was the opposite of Ralph Lauren. In reality, he was exactly the discipline the company needed. Louvet arrived in 2017 with a diagnosis that was as blunt as it was accurate. Ralph Lauren, he said, had fallen into the boiled frog trap. A company making tiny, seemingly harmless compromises quarter after quarter. A little more discounting, a little more wholesale, a little more distribution. Nothing dramatic on its own. But, over time, those small decisions drained the brand of its equity. The frog doesn't notice the water getting hotter until it's too late. His plan wasn't glamorous, but it was surgical. The first step was to pull the brand out of the places that were drowning it. Over the next several years, Ralph Lauren exited more than 1,000 U.S. department store doors, shutting down distribution that had turned the logo into a discount fixture. Instead of trying to be everywhere, Louvet focused on gateway cities, the 30 markets around the world where cultural influence is strongest. New York, London, Shanghai, Tokyo, Milan. If Ralph Lauren could win there, he could win anywhere. At the same time, the company rebuilt its retail universe from the inside out. Stores weren't just cleaned up, they were elevated. The Madison Avenue mansion became a benchmark for what Ralph Lauren should feel like. Curated, warm, intimate, and luxurious. Ralph's coffee became a lifestyle anchor. RRL sharpened its identity. Private shopping suites and hospitality-driven experiences turned stores back into destinations. Inside the company, Louvet reshaped the entire product strategy. Ralph Lauren wasn't going to chase trends or reinvent itself. Instead, the core would become the engine. About 70% of the assortment returned to evergreen icons: cable knit sweaters, Oxford shirts, tailored blazers, polo coats. The remaining 30% became calculated novelty. Enough freshness to stay relevant, never enough to distort the DNA. And perhaps the most radical move was financial. He slashed promotions and doubled the average unit retail. Prices went up, but so did margins. Luxury only works when a brand values itself. Under Louvet, Ralph Lauren finally acted like a luxury brand again. It wasn't a quick process. Years of overexpansion had trained consumers to expect discounts, and exiting wholesale meant walking away from revenue in the short term. The pandemic tested Louvet's strategy immediately. In 2020, Ralph Lauren closed 200 locations and laid off 15% of its workforce, but the reset continued, proving the turnaround wasn't just financial engineering, but genuine brand rehabilitation. By 2024 to 2025, revenue had climbed back to around $7.1 billion. Margins reached highs the company hadn't seen in more than a decade. Inventory was cleaner, brand equity was healthier, and the entire narrative began to shift. Ralph Lauren was no longer the diluted mall staple it had been just a few years earlier. It felt defined again, focused, confident. The dream had shape. But the real proof of success came from something data can't measure. The world started looking at Ralph Lauren differently again. A brand that had spent years fading into the background suddenly felt intentional, elevated, and culturally aware in a way it hadn't for a long time. The brand had been restored from the inside, but a luxury reset means nothing if the next generation doesn't follow. And that's where the story turns next. Fixing operations is one thing. Getting a new generation to notice you is something else entirely. And yet, just as the company rebuilt its foundation, the world outside shifted in Ralph Lauren's favor. Trends changed, nostalgia resurfaced, and suddenly Gen Z was looking back at a brand they never grew up with, but felt strangely connected to. Part of the shift came from culture itself. The old money aesthetic exploded across TikTok and Instagram, and suddenly, the very vocabulary Ralph had spent decades perfecting, cable knits, Oxfords, camel coats, navy blazers, felt relevant again. But it wasn't nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. Young people weren't trying to recreate the 1980s. They were looking for something that felt stable, aspirational, and timeless in a chaotic, trend-driven fashion cycle. Ralph Lauren had been doing that all along. And then came the visibility moments that brands pay millions for. Except Ralph's weren't paid. When Taylor Swift announced her engagement and both she and Travis Kelce were wearing Ralph Lauren, the internet didn't treat it as a styling choice. It treated it as a cultural signal. The US Open uniforms generated a similar wave. The polo bear returned in full force on TikTok. Styled ironically or sincerely, the bear became a cross-generational mascot again. But none of this happened by accident. Behind the scenes, Ralph Lauren doubled its marketing investment and became far more precise about where and how it spoke. Campaigns leaned into Ralph Lauren's cinematic universe: light-drenched estates, vintage convertibles, sweaters tied just loosely enough to look effortless. It wasn't trying to reinvent, it was trying to remind. The collaborations mattered too. The Oak Bluffs collection honoring HBCU style, the MLB capsule that merged American sport with American prep, the subtle drops that landed quietly but carried cultural weight, all of it helped Ralph Lauren feel connected without chasing virality. Even the Ask Ralph AI styling tool slipped naturally into the brand's DNA, used not as a gimmick, but as an extension of the in-store experience. And globally, the brand did what it had always done best: grow in places where luxury heritage still matters. China became a major engine of momentum, and Europe, especially London, Paris, Milan, embraced the revival through retail experiences that felt elevated again, not diluted. By 2025, Ralph Lauren wasn't just back, it was relevant. Not because it changed its identity, but because the world shifted closer to the values Ralph Lauren had built from the start. The brand didn't chase Gen Z. Gen Z found its way to Ralph Lauren anyway. But a comeback this clean always raises a different kind of question. How long can a timeless formula stay timeless in a fashion landscape that reinvents itself every 6 weeks? Ralph Lauren's comeback looks smooth from a distance, but there's always a cost beneath the shine. Rebuilding exclusivity meant higher prices, tighter distribution, and a sharper divide between who the brand is truly speaking to and who it quietly leaves behind. It's a strategy that works right now, but it depends on a stable, luxury customer, something that's never guaranteed in a slowing global market. Gen Z may love the old money aesthetic today, but they're also the most price-sensitive luxury audience in decades. There's another risk, too. Ralph Lauren knows better than anyone what happens when a brand expands too quickly. If the company pushes too hard into new categories or growth markets, the same overextension that hurt it in the 2010s could easily return. But the most meaningful part of this comeback isn't strategy. It's the man still standing at the center of it. At the Spring-Summer 2026 show, Ralph Lauren watched every look with the same precision he had decades ago. The collection itself said everything about where the house stands today. Clean red, white, black tailoring, lacquered evening pieces, fluid satin, relaxed menswear silhouettes reimagined for women, and those wide-brimmed straw hats that felt unmistakably Ralph. Critics called it confident, familiar, and exactly what the brand needed to assert its identity. And when he stepped out at the end, the applause wasn't for heritage. It was for presence. The fact that at 86, he is still shaping the brand with a level of involvement most founders let go of long before this stage. You could see in the clothes how personal the work still is to him. And that's the real reason the revival feels authentic. So the question isn't whether Ralph Lauren can stay relevant. It's whether this new chapter is the beginning of a long, stable ascent, or simply the start of the next cycle waiting to unfold. What do you think? Did Ralph Lauren truly fix the core of the brand, or is this just another moment before the next reset? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.